Hello, welcome once again to the Daily Fantasy Whiff podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. And we're talking about tonight's 4-game slate. Obviously, going to need to get creative in your tournaments because it's such a small slate. We're talking about fades and stacks. So, obviously, this is going to be mostly GPP, but obviously you can take into account some of these things in cash games. I mean, we'll specify where that actually comes into play. But for the most part, this is for tournaments, and like we said, only 8 teams playing. We're playing FanDuel, only 7 of the pitchers available, so you've got to be a little bit more creative over there. So we'll start things off. We'll go game by game here. We'll give you the odds and all those things. First game, Cubs at the Cardinals. 7:15 today, by the way. In case you need that extra 5 to 10 minutes to do your lineups today, you enjoy your tinkering with these few players. But minus 160 favorite for Michael Wacha against Don Roach. 7.5 run total. Looks like this is one of the few games that doesn't really have any weather concerns. Wind blowing left to right, 4 to 9 miles an hour. Not much going on there, so no major concerns. And obviously, we were talking on the earlier podcast, the FanDuel Punch Out, that Michael Wacha is going to be one of your chalk plays, especially in cash games. So a good way to go, a good stack, one of the better stacks on the night as far as contrarian plays go, and upside really, is going to be getting yourself some Chicago Cubs. And I know that you and I both in agreement there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a nice combination of power, speed. Joe Madden lets his guys run, which is always awesome. I mean, Anthony Rizzo's got 11 stolen bases. You don't see first basemen do that. So you're that 1 through 4 is potent. You've got Fowler, who's a nice power speed combo guy, Rizzo and Bryant, and then even Montero's solid. And he fills a position that's not very good as well. So really like the Cubs stack tonight, especially since I expect it to be lower owned than it should be as a result of Wacha being one of the chalk pitchers. He is the biggest betting favorite tonight. He is a strong cash games play, so I'm certainly not saying don't use Wacha tonight, but if you want to set yourself apart in GPPs, grabbing some Cubbies, and even if you're not going full-blown stack, maybe just going the 1 through 4 on DraftKings, or one of my favorite stacks tonight, because you got to get creative on a small slate, as Justin said, and this is a good time to grab from different parts of the lineup. Maybe stack 3 through 5, just mini stack. But what I like is the wraparound with the Cubs here, because not a lot of National League teams give you that non-pitcher in the 9-hole. Well, Addison Russell's not only not a pitcher, but he's a pretty good hitter, settling in as a rookie, and you're going to get to fill second base with him. Wraparound stack starting with Russell's going to probably be fairly unique tonight. So open up with Russell, Fowler, Rizzo, Bryant, and Montero, and all of a sudden you've got some power, some speed, and a unique stack.
Yeah, and I mean, Michael Wacha coming off his worst start of the season at Philly, gave up 5 earned runs in 5 innings. So that's not to say that he's a guy you're going out of your way to pick on, but like we also said, I mean, you have to be different in tournaments tonight. So going against the grain, this is a good way to do it. I like your idea with the wraparound stack. Maybe grab 2 different parts of the stack. Maybe go 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, something like that, if you're really trying to be different. And another way you can go is leave out one of the big names. I know it sounds crazy, but you're making multiple. Don't do this in one. But if you're making multiple tournament lineups, maybe leave Rizzo out of one, maybe leave Bryant out of another, something like that. Because, if one of those guys doesn't have a good game, slot someone else in there. I don't know. Like we said, you got to get creative, but that's one way you can approach it. Go ahead.
As far as Donnie Roach goes, we're not advocating using him. Thankfully, FanDuel doesn't even give you the option to use him tonight. But the Cardinals, I think they're going to have some popularity in terms of stacking because Roach is a pitch-to-contact pitcher. He has a disgustingly low 10% strikeout rate at the AAA level. I mean, when I say pitch-to-contact, we're talking dead ball era pitch-to-contact here with Roach. So guys like Carpenter and Wacha, or I'm sorry, not Wacha, Wong. Wacha's going to be popular as well, but not for his hitting prowess. But
never know.
Wong,
Maybe
Carpenter... Peralta's going to be your top play at shortstop. So you've already got 3 guys that are going to be popular. I think you're going to see that as a semi-popular stack. The 1 through 4, you got some power with Reynolds. Hayward's been hitting up there. I don't think it's a bad stack by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's going to be one of the more popular stacks tonight. So probably not going to get a ton of separation there, but there is some viability to it, especially if you get a little creative with it. Maybe you don't go full-blown stacker. As Justin said, maybe you drop off one of the bigger names. Instead of using Wong, you drop Jason Kipnis into that lineup, and you hope that it's the 2 through 4 that end up doing really well for the Cardinals tonight. So both teams are stackable in this game. I think the Cubs give you the most upside, and I also think that they give you the lowest ownership of those two stacks.
Yeah, agreed. And of the 8 teams on the board tonight, the Cardinals are one of 3 with a 4-run team total. So keep that in mind also. But they're just a tough team to stack because they don't have a lot of power, especially with Matt Holliday being out. So, it's a team effort. So I think that Cardinals are a team that you love to stack on DraftKings because you can get 6 of them. And you might need 6 of them in your stack tonight. So that's not to say not to stack them on FanDuel, but it's hard to peg which 4 guys are going to go off. So maybe get multiple Cardinal stacks in there for you. Next up, Cleveland at Baltimore. A little bit of weather concerns in this one, so just keep your eyes on that one. I don't know quite how bad it's going to be. It's early in the day right now, but Chris Tillman, a minus 127 favorite, 8.5 run total. By far the biggest total on the night. Both teams with a 4-run team total. And this one's going to be interesting because Chris Tillman, we saw it last year. He was actually pretty good. We've seen this year that he's actually been pretty terrible. Didn't even make it out of the second inning in his last start against Toronto. He's had big-time troubles with walks. You look over his last 10 games, he's walked. Well, over the last, we'll skip the last one since he didn't make out of the second inning. Every other game where he actually pitched more than an inning in a third, he has 6 games in his last 9 with at least 3 walks. So definitely concerning there. Cleveland's a really interesting stack. Jason Kipnis is going to be really popular in cash games. So, if you're going to go the route of taking a guy out of your stack, maybe Kipnis is the one to go out and do the opposite of what you said with the Cardinals. Maybe get Colton Wong in there instead because Kipnis will be pretty popular. If you're looking for the low ownership, that might be a good way to go in your stack. But both these teams, very viable stacks. Both these guys very beatable, and really not a big fan of either pitcher in this one.
Neither am I. This is a good place to target offense, and I think that the Indians, they rank as probably my favorite stack of the night, but they're also going to be very popular. Very lefty-laden lineup at a ballpark, the best offensive ballpark on the docket tonight. Ballpark that enhances run scoring and home runs for left-handed batters, and we know that the Indians certainly have plenty of those. This is a good spot to get creative, and as you said, maybe drop Kipnis off of it, maybe grab 2 different parts of the lineup and stack. Drop another big name out of there. I'm not a huge Carlos Santana fan tonight. He's going to have a favorable lineup spot. Maybe drop him and hope that Brantley does most of the damage before getting to Santana. Grab that 1 through 3. Maybe grab another portion of say the Angels lineup or the Cardinals lineup or another lineup, and maybe mash some of these stacks together. But I really like the Indians tonight against Tillman. Also really like the Orioles, especially if Adam Jones is out. If Adam Jones is in, it's on the fence right now. The talk is that Buck Showalter has mentioned that if Jones doesn't play tonight, he's going to the disabled list, but they haven't ruled him out yet as of recording the podcast. If Adam Jones is out, they're going to be missing a big piece from their lineup, and it's going to drive down ownership. When any lineup's missing a big piece, it definitely hurts the stack's ownership, which helps you if you still like that stack, and I do. I love Machado, big fan of Paredes. Matt Wieters, Chris Davis, all offer power. And then you've got guys like Chris Parmelee and Travis Snyder. So this is one that you can go 6 deep on DraftKings with, or you can grab different pieces of on FanDuel where you can only grab 4. Number of guys that can hit for power, so they can definitely deliver a big number for you. And they're facing a pitcher making just his second big league start. So I definitely like the Orioles a lot as a stack tonight. Again, especially if Jones is out. I mean, if Jones is in, he's probably going to be a guy that I'm going to drop for most of my stacks because he's had such a lengthy layoff. Going to be rusty. I think you'll still see people just throw him in there because he's Adam Jones, but that's not a route that I'm going to go even if he does play tonight.
Yeah, and like you said, you can get really creative with that Orioles stack. And Chris Tillman, as we know, has really bad reverse splits, but against lefties, 38 innings pitched, he has allowed 61 base runners. So, I mean, there are always guys on. It's only going to take one mistake for one of you guys to pay off. So if you're looking for some one-offs, some little mini stacks too, I think the Indians are a really good way to go there as well. Maybe get yourself like a Kipnis-Brantley duo. I mean, not that it won't be popular, but, I mean, you can't just fade all the popular plays on a small slate like this. Seattle at the Los Angeles Angels is our next game. Garrett Richards against J.A. Happ. Obviously, Garrett Richards the favorite in this one. I believe it's minus 143 as we're recording right now. 7.5 run total here. So wind blowing out, but very slightly. Garrett Richards is going to be your most popular play. Josh and I agree he's the top option on tonight's slate. He's just a better pitcher than Michael Wacha, and Seattle just hasn't been a very good offense. But because of that, that makes Seattle an interesting, I'll say, mini stack. This isn't a team that I want a part of all of them. I mean, go like a Cruz Cano stack, maybe Cruz Cano and Seager if you're going with 3. I guess you could throw Mark Trumbull in there, but he's much better against lefties than righties. You can get creative with this, but there's some guys like Austin Jackson. If you're going the 6 deep on DraftKings, you get him in there, but he's really not a guy I'm going to include in my stacks on FanDuel because he just doesn't have much upside. I mean, he doesn't steal as many bases as he used to. We know he doesn't have much power, so on that side, I think that's the way to go. But also on the Angels side, I mean, obviously Pujols and Trout's going to be your chalk. Your chalk plays really at their respective positions too, so they're going to be really popular. So finding the other guys, like we mentioned earlier on the podcast, David Freese, you like Chris Iannetta as well. I think that's going to be going the one-off kind of like indirect stack might be the way to go with the Angels tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, of the two, I definitely prefer the Angels. I mean, we've advocated going against the grain with the Cubbies against the Cardinals. Probably not going to be quite as profitable with the Mariners. I mean, if they hit, obviously it's going to be low owned. But as you said, I'm not going a 6-man stack with the Mariners. There's just not enough of the bats that really entice me to do that. The mini stack, I think, is a good viable strategy with them if you're not using Richards. Going to be low ownership. Cano hit a home run again last night. He's got a couple in the last 5. So definitely something to stacking them. But of the stacks tonight, I actually like them the least, which is, again, speaks to possible low ownership, but just not a stack that I'm super enamored with.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Garrett Richards, he really hasn't gotten hit hard at home yet. Hasn't given up more than 300 runs in any game at home. His worst game was at the Yankees. Got crushed all in the first inning there. Had a bad game at Boston. But, I mean, he's a guy, like we said, I mean, get yourself some pieces to stack against him, but really just not a guy that is going to implode very often. That's going to be worth stacking your entire roster.
Nope.
All right, one more game left here. It is Arizona at San Diego. Andrew Cashner, Jeremy Hellickson, 2 much maligned starters here where Andrew Cashner was much better a few years ago, starting to get it going. Jeremy Hellickson, if you ask me, was never really that good. He had his moments. But he's pitched well recently, so this one's going to be really interesting. I mean, a lot of it might come down to personal preference here, but Vegas tends to side with the pitchers here. 6.5 run total. The wind is blowing in. Already the best pitcher's park in the game. So this is going to be a really tough one to stack, and it's also going to be probably the lowest owned stacks because, you know, that it does have the lowest total, and it is in the pitcher's park. So it's going to be really interesting here. Maybe like Kemp Upton kind of stacks. Maybe get interesting with it and get guys like Derek Norris, Corey Spangenberg in there. Obviously, Paul Goldschmidt, A.J. Pollock is always a viable stack. But for me, I mean, this seems like one of those games where you're stacking it just to be different, not because it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I'd agree. There's not a lot pointing to much offense tonight. Yes, there's some offensive talent in this game, but bad ballpark, bad wind conditions, just not a lot to like. And Hellickson already spun a gem recently against the Padres. He, as a guy who doesn't induce a ton of ground balls, going to enjoy pitching at Petco Park tonight since it does suppress home runs to lefties and righties. And then Cashner. What a weird stat line for him. His strand rate's 10% below his career rate. Strikeout rate's up this year from last year. And what we have is a pitcher whose ERA just isn't very good. It's over 4, but his xFIP is under 4. Had some struggles with the home run ball this year, but really hasn't in his career. So not something I expect to continue. I do think Cashner turns it around at some point. Tonight's not a bad night to bet on that being the case. Obviously, he's going to have to avoid some damage from Goldie, which has been tough for everyone to do. Pollock, a strong hitter as well. Guys like Yasmani Tomas, not bad, but not the most daunting lineup to get through. I like Cashner at home. He's my preference in this game. But Hellickson, not a huge dog on the road, and again, low total. So on a site like DraftKings where if he limits base runners and pitches 6 to 7 innings, you don't necessarily need that win for him to deliver on his price tag. I like him a bit. Just $6,700 there. $6,300 makes all he has to do is give you a decent start if your stacks hit on FanDuel. So again, not a bad play there either, even if he doesn't get the W as an underdog. And I'm not going to say that he can't get that because Padres have been tied up by righties this year, and I mean, it could be a low-scoring affair where Hellickson just gets enough. I mean, Goldie could give it to him himself, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we were mentioning with Arizona, this is a team that actually is tied for the lowest team total, along with the Mariners and the Cubs tonight. So chalk pitchers are Garrett Richards and Michael Wacha, but Andrew Cashner, like we mentioned earlier, a really good tournament option for you tonight against a team that is much better against lefties than they are against righties. And I mean, a lot of park factors going against all the hitters in this one. So, all right, and that's going to wrap things up for this short slate. Find us on Twitter at DFCafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our projections, our cheat sheets, lots of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.